Greetings. Today is the evening before the Day of Atonement. It is a preparatory day. And while normally I don't teach, the times have changed. The day has changed. For 8 years, I've warned about the coming war. And today, the world is on the verge of it. The first strikes have begun. The preparations have begun. And it is barreling towards global extinction, but not of all life. This war was foretold and it was warned about. This war will remove this dominion or this rulership of the world. And we will go into a transition phase before the next rulership will come. The key now is to establish atonement. For one to atone for oneself. I want to show you all a pattern, and we're going to start laying down some foundational histories so you can understand where atonement was established and what was the actual cause for the Day of Atonement, and then what is the final revelation of the Day of Atonement. This is just the foundation. So, from the beginning, the Day of Atonement was observed. And you'll say, where's the proof of that? Rabbi, you talking, but we need some text. Jubilees, chapter 6, and verse 2. I'll start at verse 1 for a little pretext. And on the new moon of the 3rd month, he went forth from the ark. This is Noah. And he built an altar on that mountain. And he made atonement for the earth. He took a kid of the goats and made atonement by its blood for all the guilt of the earth. For everything that had been on it had been destroyed, save those that were in the ark with Noah. So here's the first time you see the word atonement mentioned, and it's prior to the instruction of atonement being given. Well, Rabbi, you say, this is the 3rd month. We're talking about the Day of Atonement. And for that, I say you're correct. Let's go to the next chapter. And I'm going this verse by verse, but normally I read entire chapters. But I'm not going to read entire chapters. You have to do your homework yourself because we don't have time. So chapter 7 of Jubilees, verse number 2. And he made wine therefrom and put it in a vessel and kept it until the 5th year. From verse 1 in pretext, you'll see that this is Noah after he gets out of the ark on the Mount of Ararat, Mount Labar, and he started producing fruits. And he started making wine in the 5th year. So you automatically see that Noah is following the process of the law of gardening, not taking from the fruit of the tree before the 5th year. Until the first day on the new moon of the first month. Verse 3. And he celebrated with joy the day of this feast. So in the time of Noah, on the first day of the month, the time of joy of this feast in the first month, and he's having this festival. And you say, it's the first month. To Noah, the first month was Tishri. Because in the Exodus, you find where Allah changed the numbering of the months, but not their sequential order by name. So if the first month was Tishri during the time of Noah, the seventh month was Abib or Nisan. And so now you see in the first month after the new moon that Noah is observing the festival. Now the first day of the month of the seventh month, the festival actually is Yom Teruah, or the Feast of Trumpets. And then it continues on to the 10th day. If you continue reading throughout Jubilees chapter 6 and 7, you'll see the observations of all the festival days. You'll also see the appointing times of 364 days and not 365. Which takes me forward. Now we have Noah observing festival times before the Day of Atonement is made. So why is the Day of Atonement actually made? There's a before. There has to be the genuine reason. For that, we're going to go to Jubilees, chapter 34. And verse 16. And there came these 3 mornings upon Yasharel in 1 month. And they buried Bilhah over against the tomb of Rachel, or Rakia, one of these are the righteous mothers. And Dinah also, his daughter, the daughter of Jacob, they buried there. So you have Bilhah, Rachel, or Rachel, and Dinah buried in the tomb. In the tomb, the tower of Rachel. And he mourned for Joseph 1 year and did not cease. For he said, let me go down to Sheol mourning for my son. And because Jacob mourned for Joseph, it says in verse 18, for this reason it is ordained for the children of Yasharel that they should afflict themselves on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day that the news which made him weep for Joseph came to Yaakov, his father, that they should make atonement for themselves thereon with a young goat on the 10th day of the 7th month, once a year, for their sins, for they had grieved the affliction of their father regarding Joseph, his son. Let me give you a quick breakdown. So the ordination of the Day of Atonement on the 10th day is because Judah had sold Joseph into slavery, but came back and said that Joseph had died. And because of this news, it was grieved. And it's because of this action we are in reversed roles today. Judah is in the house of bondage, while the house of Israel remains throughout the Arab world, in Arab countries. They are still an Arabized people living throughout the Middle East that the European nations are trying to, quote unquote, civilize. When the cradle of civilization begins in the Middle East, in Iraq. We just talking about the Day of Atonement. Verse 19, and this day has been ordained that they should grieve thereon for their sins and for all their transgressions and for all their errors, so that they might cleanse themselves on that day once a year. So we got one day in the year to look up and to recognize what have we done in violation of the law which was given by the hand of Moses. So you'll say to me, Rabbi, you've told us and showed us that Noah, which means Methuselah, which means Enoch, which means Adam, were observing these festival days, but they didn't know why until this happened to Joseph. Yes, that's what I'm saying. God appointed it at a future time and then revealed it later, showing his omniscience, his understanding of the fullness of time before you knew why it was appointed. He appointed it. And so, how does this relate to us today? It relates to us today because we are in the same captivity that Joseph was in. We have some of us that have elevated themselves to high positions of prominence and of great wealth in the house of bondage here in America and throughout Europe. But what are they doing? They're not like Joseph at all. They have forgotten who they are. They have forgotten where they belong. They have not set themselves or the people aside to keep the laws. They have followed the religions given to them by the nations that they live in. They have followed those laws as well, keeping nothing. I know you'll say to me, Rabbi, what about the New Testament? The New Testament is Greek. If it's not in the Aramaic or the Aramaic, throw it in the trash. But Rabbi, what about the Quran? The Quran is sent by Allah to preserve the traditions and the culture, but it does not teach the true Islam, which was given by the hand of Moshe. And all of the Jewish people around the world, they can hoard over the books, they can read them, But you must know this. Allah was never talking to you. So you know you cannot fulfill it or perform it. Neither can you grasp the understanding of it. And you say nobody can because God was not talking to you. You know, in the conversation, the two that are conversing have full understanding because the conversation is directed to each other. If you're not of the blood of Jacob, then Jacob and all those who come from his lineage, none of these words mean anything to you. You're only hoping for the salvation that is promised to the nations after this war. So what do we do to atone? To atone today, you must carry with you, save it, put it on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, put it in your suitcase. The words of Hosea chapter 14, verse 2 through 10. And after you pray it, go back and read the book of the law, Exodus chapter 19 to Deuteronomy 34, and keep every rule to the best of your ability. If you find it complicated to understand, until you get to the point to where you are receiving proper teaching, then just start with Ezekiel chapters 18 and chapter 22. Pray these prayers tomorrow, March 5th, 2022, and really reflect on your lives. You say, well, what happens after we pray this prayer? I'm going to read you the word of Allah. Direct about what will happen after tomorrow. Deuteronomy 32, verses 29 to 43. Oh, that they were intelligent in the law, the Torah, and that they understood what they will become in their latter end. How will one foe pursue 1,000 of them, and two put 10,000 of them to flight, unless he who is their strength deliver them, and Yah avenge them? I want to explain to you what this just said so that you have clarity of thought, because a lot of you heard one will chase 1,000 and two will chase 10,000. It doesn't say that to you Yasharel. It says, oh, that you were intelligent in the law, the Torah, and that they understood what they will become in their latter end. How one of Yasharel's enemies will pursue 1,000 of them, and two will put 10,000 of them to flight, unless Allah, who is their strength, deliver them, and Allah avenge them. For the idols of the Gentiles are not as he who is the strength of Yasharel. For the strength of Yasharel, when they have sinned, bringeth punishment upon them, upon us. The time of our punishment has come. The demonstration of this punishment you see now in Ukraine. Russia has come in and attacked Ukraine. And the only people struggling to get out without an arm of support is my people. There's no one to send an Air Force in to rescue them. Not a helicopter, not a jet. There's no athletes taking private planes, because none of them have the proper clearances to demand by force as a nation for their people, like India, like China. Yet you go to these nations in Europe expecting the best education, and at what cost? Now, the claim of that education is costing you your lives as you wait at the borders to try to escape. That's a punishment upon Yasharel. And once you cross that border and enter into a foreign nation, where will you go now? What will you do in that country? Except for try to find the way back to your country of origin, your place of sojourning. When they have sinned, Allah bringeth punishment upon them. But when they stretch forth their hands in prayer, Allahu Akbar, He answereth and delivereth them. But the idols of the peoples of strange worship are of no use. No day of atonement at the appointed time, no salvation. Okay? The war is here now. Atonement is here now. You need salvation now. You don't have 6 months to even test if what I'm saying is a lie. You may be dead by then. But because we have provoked him, we provoked him. Everything that's happening to us today, we provoked Allah to this. You wanted to know what it was like if you had a Christian government. If you had the majority of your people be Christian, now you have it. You want to know what it's like to live in foreign countries and exotic places and see what the world is like, using the world's politics, the world's laws, the world's government, making every rich rule whichever someone sees fit for themselves, and the rules are constantly changing on a daily yet hourly basis. And you have not returned to Allah's service, to God's service. You have not. Our adversaries are our witnesses and our judges. The enemies of the Hebrew Israelites are our witnesses and our judges. They witness against us. So if you're a Hebrew Israelite and you cleave to the New Testament, you're going to suffer with all the other New Testament Christians. If you cleave to another government, you're going to suffer with the peoples of that government. For the works of this people are like the works of the people of Sodom, and their evil counselors like those of the people of Gomorrah or Amorah. Their wicked thoughts are as serpents' heads, bitter. Therefore, to them is their punishment, which makes desolate. This world is coming to desolation. Behold, as the bitterness of serpents, when they come forth from their wines, so shall they be the bitter cup of the curse, which they are to drink in the day of their punishment, and cruel as the head of an asp, or as a viper, toxic, poisonous. Are not their secret works all known before me? Sealed and laid up are they in my treasury. Vengeance lies before me, and I will recompense them at the time when their foot shall move to the captivity. For the day of their destruction is coming near, and the evil which is prepared for them maketh haste. For Yah of the world, or for the word of Yah, judgeth in his mercy, and the judgment of his people Yasharel, and for the evil he hath appointed unto his servants. So what stems from this problem? What is Allah complaining about that we have not strayed from? I'll tell you what it is. Ezekiel told you. This is the problem. So this is why the judgment is coming. So what does this judgment mean? What is this judgment going to do? We're already in captivity. We're already scattered around the world. People hate us because of our black skin. What does this mean? What it means is, when you go to Ezekiel Chapter 20, 35 and 38. Wait, you know what? I'm going to come back to that. Let's go to Numbers 25. I want to stick in the law for a second, because everybody likes to read prophets and prophecies, but you don't understand any rules. You don't have any foundation. You don't have the culture. You don't have any understanding. So I have to come back and do this a different way. I have to stay with the foundation. The number one problem is right here. Numbers 25. And Israel dwelt in the place which is called Shittim, on account of the Shituta, the foolishness and depravity which was among them. And the people began to profane their holiness and to strip their bodies to the image of Peor. What are you talking about? We don't have no idols here. Right? Ain't no statues. We ain't bowing down to no statues. That's not what the Most High considers that to be. That's not context. In proper context, it's clearly explained when you read it from the Aramaic. They stripped their bodies to the image of Peor and commit fornication. Now at that time, they did it with the daughters of the Moabites. Right? Who brought out the image of Peor concealed under the bundles of their clothes. So, I understand. You like this girl. She's all that. She's beautiful, thick body. And she got this ankh around her neck. She got this hand with an eye on it. That's a necklace. She has a cross. She's walking around with sages and stones. None of that is commissioned by the law of Moses. She's doing these positive affirmations and light work, dark work, heavy work. It says you're having sex with these women that practice this. That's bowing down to the idol of Peor. It says in verse 3, and the people of the house of Yasharel joined themselves to Baal Peor, the idol of Peor, Baal Peor, Baal Peor, like the nail in the wood, which is not separated, but by breaking up the wood. And the anger of Yah was kindled against Israel. Now you say to me, wait a minute. That was back then with Moses' time. Moses dealt with that. All right, now let's go to Ezekiel. Because now you have some foundation. Let's see what Ezekiel has to say about that. Ezekiel chapter 20, 35 to 38. I'm going to start at verse 33 for a little pretext. As I live, says Yah Allah, the Lord God, with a mighty hand and with outpoured anger, will I be king over you, Yasharel. I will bring you out from among the nations, and I will gather you in from the countries in which you have been scattered, with a mighty hand and a raised up arm, and with anger poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the nations, and I will demand an accounting from you there face to face, as I demanded an accounting from your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So will I demand an accounting from you, says Yah Allah, and I will lay upon you the decree of my justice, and I will bring you into the covenantal traditions. I will separate from you those who have rebelled against my memra, and who have dealt falsely with my memra. So rebels is out, and those who think they're going to come into this new kingdom, into this new establishment of the peoples, if you think you're going to come And you're not going to learn because you know it all now. You got it all way together without having to go through the Most High's process. I'm telling you right now, it ain't going to work. Because he said it's not. Rebels is out, and the covenantal tradition. And I will separate from you those who have rebelled against and those who have dealt falsely with my memra, and I will bring them out of the land of their sojourning. In other words, the land you have lived in since being exiled out of Jerusalem, exiled out of the Holy Land of Israel, exiled out of our home country. That's 2,000 years we've been exiled out by the Roman Vatican Church. But they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and you shall know that I am Yah. I am your God. So explain it to me. He says, just like he was angry in Egypt, just like he was angry with Moses in the wilderness, and he demanded an accountability, and we drove him to anger with fornication, sexual sins, and idolatry. He says, we've come to the same point today. So it's time to take accountability. There are some things which are not atonable. We're going to go to Jubilee Chapter 30. Verse 7. And if there is any man who wishes in Yasharel to give his daughter or his sister to any man who is of the seed of the other nations, he shall surely die. And he shall stone him with stones, for he has wrought shame in Yasharel. And they shall burn the woman with fire, because she has dishonored the name of the house of her father, and she shall be rooted out of Yasharel. And let not an adulteress, a woman who has stepped out on her man, and no uncleanness be found in Yasharel throughout all the days of the generation of the earth. For Yasharel is holy unto Yah, and every man who has defiled it shall surely die. They shall stone him with stones, for thus it has been ordained and written in the heavenly tablets regarding all the seed of Yasharel. He who defiles it shall surely die, and he shall be rooted out with stones. And to this Torah there is no limit of days, and no remission, nor any atonement. But the man who has defiled his daughter shall be rooted out in the midst of all Yasharel, because he has given his seed to Molech, and wrought impiously so as to defile it. So all sexual immorality is Molech worship. I didn't say it, it's right here in Jubilees. There's no atonement for that. Maybe we need another verse. Let's go to Jubilees 33. Verse 12. And again, it is written the second time, cursed be he who lies with the woman of his father, for he has uncovered his father's shame. And all the holy ones, the Kodeshim of Yah, said, so be it, so be it. Amen, amen. And you, Musa, command the children of Yasharel that they observe this word, for it entails a punishment of death, and it is unclean, for there is no atonement forever to atone for the man who has committed this. For he has to be put to death and slain and stoned with stones and rooted out from the midst of the people of our Allah. For to no man who does so in Yasharel is permitted to remain alive a single day on the earth, for he is abominable and unclean. And let them not say Reuben was granted life and forgiveness after he had lain with his father's concubine Bilhah. And to her also she had a man, and her man Yaakov, his father, was still alive. For until that time, what? Until that time. The importance that I'm trying to get you to see here is the law is established, but it's established according to the process of the Most High's chosen people, and he unfolds it to them. That once you've gone through it and you've seen the punishment of this sin exercised to its fullest, then it is established. Until that time, there had not been revealed the ordinance and judgment and Torah in its completeness for all. Meaning you had seen the actions, you've seen the problems that it caused and the punishment, and it was the first time and nobody had known. But in your days it has been revealed as a Torah of seasons and of days, and an everlasting Torah for everlasting generations. And for this Torah there is no consummation of days, and no atonement for it, but they must both be rooted out in the midst of the nations. They must both be rooted out in the midst of the nations. So this is the Exodus. And you're going to be rooted out in the midst of the nations. So you committed these sexual sins, you bow down and commit this Molech worship, committing this idolatry, the fornication, you out here performing and marrying foreign nations, you're all getting rooted out. You don't like me, you don't like me. I don't care. Nobody like me and don't know it. You're all getting rooted out. With the nations that taught it to you. This is the accountability. You're all going to be slain for these sins. Yeah, it's legal. It wasn't lawful. The day of punishment has come. The day that I warned about for 8 years and was taken to the Middle East and taught and raised as a prince and as a king to the truth and brought back to take those who survived back. Has come. Everybody else is at war. I'm not at war. I don't have these problems. It's not my issue. They gotta fight their own fight. And you gonna go fight with them? Go be slain with them. I guarantee you. It's going to happen. I want to make this very, very clear. In Numbers 35, verse 30. Whosoever killeth a man according to the word of a witness fit to give testimony against him, the avenger of blood, or the house of judgment shall put him to death. But one witness only shall not testify against a man to put him to death. You may not take a ransom for the release of a murderer who was guilty of death. For dying he shall die. Neither may you take ransom for him who hath fled to his city of refuge, so that he may return to dwell in the land before the time of the high priest's decease. Nor contaminate ye the land in which you are, because innocent blood, which hath not been avenged, will overflow the land. And there is no atonement made for the land which innocent blood has been shed, but by the shedding of innocent blood of him who shed it. Therefore, defile not the land in which you are, for my Shekinah dwelleth in the midst of it. For I am Yah, whose Shekinah dwells among the children of Yasharel. God has taken full account of all the innocent blood that has been spilt. All of it. The judgment for that is death. And there's no atonement for that. EU, NATO, Russia, China, whoever. It doesn't matter. If you shed innocent blood, no atonement for that. None. And now we're sitting in a situation where the world wants to drive home its propaganda about who's important to live, who's civilized, and who's not, based upon their predication and what's the proper procedure to go about doing evil, because they should be in charge because they're better than the other one, and all of you about to go. After this war, you can count all the nations now. Better count it now. After the war, there will only be 70 left. There will only be 70 nations after the war. 70 nations, according to the 70 souls that went down into Egypt of the children of Yasharel. So when the world is all done with all of this war and fighting, at the end of it, there will be a total of 71. The nation of Yasharel and 70 other nations. On this Day of Atonement, I'm giving you this message. All of the sexual sins you need to atone for, it's in the book of Leviticus. Leviticus chapter 16. And 29 tells you, and this shall be for you an everlasting statute in the 7th month. It is the month Tishri, on the 10th day of the month. You shall humble yourselves by abstaining from food and drinks, and from the use of a bath, and from rubbing, and from sandals, and from the practice of the bed. Can't sleep on your bed or your mattress. And you shall not do any work, neither the native born, nor the stranger who dwelleth among you. For this day shall you make atonement for you, to cleanse you from all your sins. And you shall confess your transgressions before Allah, Yah Allah, and shall be clean. It is a day of rest to you. No work of business shall you do, but you shall humiliate your souls. It is an everlasting statute. And the priest who is anointed, who has offered his oblation to minister instead of his father, shall be clothed in robes of fine linen, even consecrated robes. And he shall make atonement for the Holy of Holies, and for the tabernacle of ordinance, and for the altar, and for the priest, and for all the people of the congregation shall he atone with words of confession. And this shall be to you for an everlasting statute, to expiate the children of Israel from all their sins, once in the year. And Aaron did this as Moses commanded. Moses taught Aaron to do this.
Stop taking my blanket.
I'm going to close with this. Leviticus chapter 18 and verse 2. Speak with the sons of Yasharel and say to them, I am Yah, your God, your Allah. After the evil work of the people of the land of the house of bondage, of the land where you have sojourned and been exiled, among whom you have dwelt, you shall not do. Likewise, after the evil work of the people of the land of Canaan, whither I am bringing you to, you shall not do. Neither shall you walk according to their laws. I want to make this clear. It says don't walk according to their laws in Canaan, but the traditions of the house of Abraham stand, the covenantal traditions. Those who are going with me, I'll see you on the journey and we will learn along the way. Those who meet me along the way, along the path. We will continue and we will pick up and we will always start from the beginning with you. And for those who pass, don't worry. Of the children of Yasharel, you'll get another shot. That's a deep secret for another day. If you look in Song of Songs, chapter 1 and verse 2, go look it up in the Aramaic. The Aramaic, Song, S-O-N-G, of Songs. Aramaic Targum, T-A-R-G-U-M, translation. Chapter 1, verse 2. It's a free download of the PDF on Google. You will find Yah says that you have to learn the law, the 6 orders of the law, which is categorized, and the Gemara by oral tradition. There ain't no book on the Gemara. I don't care who told you, from wherever, they lie. It says you must learn it by oral tradition, which means you must come into the house of Abraham where the tradition is kept and learn from the Shekim and the Sultans. If you're not Ismaili, you can't teach me nothing. For the house of Ishmael is blessed. "70 nations will only remain." It says when you come out, you'll come out with a song. The 10th song. The only way for us to ever rise and become a nation, we have to atone. Check out my new song. It's free. It's on YouTube. Hymn of Atonement. Learn it. Teach it to your sons. This song will redeem us. This song will end our captivity. This song will be our traveling music back to the land. It is written. In Deuteronomy Chapter 19. "And now write you this hymn." Write you. That it was talking to me when I wrote it. But at the time, Yah was talking to Moses. This is what I was talking about in the beginning. The words are directed to someone. And you know when you're being spoken to. "And teach the children of Israel, put it on their lips, that this hymn may be for them for a witness against the children of Israel." So it will find you in the wrong religion, following the wrong procedures, under the wrong government, keeping the wrong laws, mixing and mingling things that ain't to be mixed. "For I will bring them into the land which I promised to their fathers, a land producing milk and honey, and they will eat and be satisfied. And after they have eaten and are satisfied, they will turn away to the idols of the Gentiles." That's where we are today. "And worship them. So will they provoke me, Allah, God, to anger. And they will abolish my covenant And when these evils and troubles shall come upon them, the curses which I have written to them in this book, then will this hymn, this song, bear witness to them for a testimony. For it is revealed before me that it will not be forgotten on the lips of their children for their evil disposition to which they are yielding today, even before I bring you into the promised land, is known to me. And Moses wrote this hymn and taught the children of Israel. I've taken this hymn, I remixed it, and I've reissued it. The day of redemption starts now. You bypass this video, so what? I'm only expecting the few, says a remnant. If you bypass the song, so what? I wasn't expecting you. You won't have it. Only those who can obey the smallest instructions of the law will our God keep. Because if you don't fear him, he don't want you. Fear is the beginning of wisdom. Fear God. Fear Allah. This is the beginning of wisdom. And to fear him is to obey, knowing that he has the power to enforce. Right? And so now he's enforced the punishment that we was to receive. Now it's the punishment for all the sins we have indulged ourselves in. And you have to take yourself out of your own sin. And if you committed one of the unatonables, hey, that was free choice. You did that on you. You did it on your own. Okay? And for those who haven't committed an unatonable sin, you can make atonement today. You can make atonement right now. You can change. Pray Hosea chapter 14, chapter 2, verse 2, chapter 14, verse 2 to 10, and pick up. Okay? That's my time. This is what I have for you. And I'll see y'all on the way. I ain't got too much more to say. The next phase has begun. Good night.